Rain battered the small town of Cedar Hollow as if the sky was screaming out every secret it had ever hidden. Wind howled through the ancient pines, snapping dead branches and hurling them across the narrow trail winding out of town. In the midst of the crackling thunder, Emily Carter, a frail 10-year-old whose lungs had been her weakness since birth, stumbled through the carpet of rotting leaves. Emily's breath broke into ragged wheezes, each cough scraping her chest raw. Her familiar blue inhaler slipped from her trembling hand, rolled into a pool of black mud, and vanished beneath twisted roots. She dropped to her knees on the soaked ground, lifting her gaze to a sky that looked ready to swallow her whole. Thunder rumbled so loud it devoured her desperate cry for her father's name. The wind slammed her forward, everything blurred. Only the drumming rain filled her ears, each drop a cold needle. Suddenly, through the white sheet of rain, Emily heard the crackle of dead leaves being crushed. Slow, steady footsteps closing in. She forced her eyes open. Through the curtain of storm, a figure emerged, low to the ground, broad-shouldered, its dark coat dripping, but its amber eyes burning with a fierce, unwavering light. At first, Emily thought it was a stray wolf, but within a heartbeat, she saw the long muzzle, the drooping wet ears, the hind leg dragging slightly. It was a German shepherd, thin yet brimming with a silent defiance. The dog halted just a few feet away. It did not bark, did not growl, just stared at her with an unspoken vow. "Don't be afraid, I'm here now." The rain poured harder. The dog stepped forward, then again, planting itself between Emily and the moving beam of light. A low growl rolled from its throat, soft but unmistakable. Whoever dared take another step would have to face him first. In that instant, in the storm-ravaged forest of Cedar Hollow, an unspoken promise bound them. No matter who came, no matter how fierce the storm, he would never leave her side. 1 week before the stormy night, Cedar Hollow still lay peaceful under the pale gold warmth of a weekend morning. Down the dusty road that led to the flea market on the town's edge, Emily Carter skipped alongside her neighbor, Mrs. Eunice Miller, a widowed lady with silver hair and eyes that always glowed with gentle kindness. A comfort Emily relied on whenever her father was too lost in engine grease and wrenches. Cedar Hollow's flea market was a charming mess. The scent of sweet pastries drifting from a food truck, old wooden tables stacked with books, antiques, and piles of scrap metal nobody wanted. Emily's favorite part was digging through boxes of secondhand books, breathing in the musty pages, pretending she was an explorer uncovering hidden worlds. But that morning, what caught her attention wasn't a book. It was a sound, rough, strangled, like someone gasping through a closed throat. Emily's head snapped up, eyes narrowing toward the far end of the stalls, where Travis Moore, the flea market's foul-tempered junk dealer, was shoving a broom handle under a rusty table. "Get out of here, you worthless mutt!" Travis barked, jabbing the broom so hard it rattled the metal legs. A sharp, pained yelp echoed, slicing through the market's hum. Emily's heart clenched so tight it hurt. "Emily, don't go near that!" Mrs. Miller called, her voice tense. But it was too late. Emily was already on her knees, crawling closer to the shadow under the table. In the dim, musty darkness, 2 amber eyes met hers, afraid yet strangely unbroken. A German shepherd, caked in filth, ribs jutting like fragile sticks, one foreleg bent at a painful angle. But that gaze, it refused to surrender. "Please, don't hit him anymore," Emily whispered, voice trembling. Travis shot her a glare. "None of your business, kid. I hate beggars rooting through my junk." Emily swallowed hard, leaning closer to the dog's eyes. "I want to buy him." Travis snorted, lifting a brow. "Buy? This mangy thing? $10 then. Take it." Emily dug into her coat pocket, fingers brushing over 3 crumpled dollar bills, her treat money her father had given her. She held them out, voice barely more than a breath. I only have $3. Her hand trembled. Mrs. Miller's voice cracked beside her. Emily, don't do this. Travis barked a laugh, mocking her tiny hands. 3? You think I'm a charity kid? Emily's fingers clenched tighter around the pitiful bills, eyes locked on the shepherd's desperate yet hopeful stare. She drew a shaky breath, pleading, Please, sir, sell him to me. He won't bother you ever again. I promise. Travis glanced at her, then at the dog, a filthy nuisance he'd rather never see again. With an exaggerated snort, he snapped, Fine, $3. Take him and get out of my sight. Relief washed over Emily's small face as she pressed the money into Travis's grease-stained palm. She crawled closer beneath the table, reaching out. Don't be scared. I'm taking you home, okay? I promise. The shepherd's amber eyes flickered softly, the fear melting into a calm, grateful glow, as if he understood this little girl had chosen to save him when no one else would. He shuffled forward on trembling paws, his cold, wet nose brushing against her open palm. In that instant, amidst rusty junk and stale air, an invisible thread bound a fragile girl to a creature that had forgotten what hope felt like. Max limped beside Emily as they left the Cedar Hollow flea market, his injured foreleg dragging, fur soaked and matted in filthy clumps. Every step seemed to pull him deeper into memories too old to name. Yet Emily felt only a gentle certainty binding her to him. Mrs. Eunice Miller trailed a few steps behind, her sigh swallowed by the breeze. On the quiet dirt road home, Emily leaned close, brushing a tender hand over his battered head, whispering as if to herself, I'll call you Max. I don't know why, but it keeps echoing in my mind, like someone whispered it to me on the way back. Max lifted his amber eyes to her, and for the first time that day, they shimmered with a light untouched by fear, the light of a soul realizing it had been chosen again. Back home, Emily waited for her father, Aaron Carter, still bent over an engine deep into the night. She snuck Max to the old shed out back, spread the blanket Mrs. Miller had brought, and poured water into a chipped metal bowl. Max settled in without protest, head resting on his front paws, gaze locked to Emily's every move as if she might vanish if he blinked. While picking through the hardened clumps of mud around Max's neck, Emily's fingers caught on something cold and metallic buried in his thick fur. She tugged it free and wiped away grime, her eyes widening in disbelief. A tarnished silver dog tag, the letters clear beneath the rust. Max, K9 Unit, Handler Sergeant L. Carter. Her breath hitched, a whisper slipping out, barely more than a gasp. Max, that's really your name. It's like Uncle Luke whispered it to me on the road home. She clutched the tag to her chest, staring into Max's calm, waiting eyes. The eyes of a soldier who knew he belonged here all along. That night, Emily refused to leave the shed. She curled herself against Max's rough fur, whispering his name over and over. Max, Max. As though afraid he might disappear the moment she fell asleep. A quiet creak outside the shed startled Max awake. The door swung open to reveal Aaron Carter, hair damp with sweat, his shirt stained with oil and garage dust. He froze on the threshold, flashlight beam catching a fragile silhouette, his daughter wrapped around a battered dog. Emily, his voice was low but struck the silence like a hammer. Max rose instantly, a low growl rumbling, planting himself protectively in front of Emily. She clutched his fur, whispering, "It's okay, Max." Aaron's eyes fell to the dog tag lying by her foot. Under the flashlight's glare, the name, Sergeant L. Carter, carved itself deep into a wound that had never truly healed. He didn't scold Emily. He didn't shout. He just stood there, shoulders taut, chest rising and falling like a man choking on ghosts. Memories slammed into him. Luke's grin, Luke's promise to come home, the military chaplain's stiff words at his door. On one side was reason. This dog was too big, too broken, too dangerous for a fragile, asthmatic girl. On the other side was memory. This creature once bled and fought beside his brother. Aaron's jaw tightened, rage and grief flickering in his eyes like embers. At last he turned away, voice hoarse and strained. "We'll talk about this in the morning." In that moment, Emily knew her father was wrestling demons he'd buried for a decade, and Max, still pressed close to her knee, held no fear in his gaze, only loyalty and the quiet resignation of a soldier still on duty. Days after he was found, Max no longer had to curl up in the cold, drafty shed. Aaron, though he never clearly said yes, silently allowed Emily to bring Max into the main house. Instead of scolding, he simply watched as the big shepherd crept nervously across the threshold, his weary eyes softening with something like surrender. That afternoon, with gentle sunlight spilling across the kitchen floor, Emily filled a basin with warm water. Kneeling beside it, she dipped a rag and carefully wiped away the layers of caked dirt from Max's back. At first, Max flinched when the warm cloth touched his old wounds, but soon he relaxed, lifting his amber eyes to her, a gaze calm and unwavering, full of quiet trust. Mrs. Eunice Miller arrived carrying her old tin first aid kit. She knelt next to Emily, cleaning the gash on Max's front leg, dabbing antiseptic gently, then wrapping the wound in fresh white gauze. When they finished, Max's eyes drooped in contentment, his thin tail thumping once against the floor. A silent thank you for kindness long forgotten. That night, instead of being sent back outside, Max climbed the creaking wooden stairs to the second floor. Emily walked beside him, her tiny hand on his thick neck, whispering as if afraid he might change his mind. "You'll sleep with me now, Max. No one's ever going to leave you again." Aaron stood in the hallway watching. For a heartbeat, conflict flickered behind his tired eyes, but at last he gave a small nod and turned away, descending the stairs in silence. He knew Max had made his choice, and so had Emily. For the next 3 days, Aaron left Emily and Max alone, a silent truce between them. Every afternoon after school, Emily would secretly sneak food out to the backyard, a small pack of cookies, a carton of milk, and a bit of cold meat wrapped carefully in a napkin. She would sit on the cold stone tiles beside Max, gently brushing his matted fur and cleaning the wound on his limping leg. Max ate quietly without a whimper, occasionally leaning his head against Emily's thin arm in silent gratitude. As the cold wind swept through, Emily began coughing violently. The coughing fit left her trembling, and as she fumbled for her inhaler, her hand shook so badly that it slipped from her pocket and rolled out of reach. Max saw it fall. Unable to find the inhaler in the grass and shadows, he suddenly turned and bolted toward the back door of the house. He barked sharply, each sound firm and urgent, then scratched at the door with his paw. Aaron was in the kitchen. He frowned and opened the door. "What is it?" Max barked again, then ran a short circle, as if trying to signal something. Something was wrong. Aaron followed instinctively. When he stepped into the backyard, he saw Emily curled up on the ground, her face pale and lips turning blue. Without hesitation, he pulled out a new inhaler from the emergency drawer he always kept nearby and dropped to his knees beside her. "Emily, look at me. Breathe," he said firmly but gently. Max stayed close, eyes full of concern. And in that moment, in the biting cold of the night, 3 hearts, once strangers, were quietly bound by loyalty, courage, and one perfectly timed bark. One rainy afternoon, Emily slipped on the slick porch step. She yelped, arms flailing. But before she hit the ground, Max lunged beneath her, bracing his sturdy back against her fall. He steadied her as surely as a wall. Emily's sketchbooks changed too. Instead of pine forests and drifting clouds, each page now bloomed with the image of a dark-coated German shepherd, ears perked, eyes fierce, standing at her side like a silent bodyguard. She hid those pages under her pillow, afraid her father might find them. One night, Emily coughed so violently in the shed that she couldn't catch her breath. Her small hands clawed through blankets, searching for her inhaler. Max, who had been lying still, rose sharply, nosed an old storage crate aside, and fished out the inhaler trapped beneath it. He set it gently in her palm. Tears burned in Emily's eyes as she gasped for air. Between ragged breaths, she whispered, "Thank you, Max. You're not just a dog. You're my sentinel." After days of warm baths, clean bandages, and nights curled at Emily's bedside, the atmosphere in the Carter house began to shift. Aaron, though still guarded, would sometimes nod silently when Max padded past him in the hallway, a quiet sign that the wounded dog's presence was no longer an unwelcome ghost. Each morning, Max stood patiently at Emily's bedroom door, waiting for her to tie her shoes before following her down the gravel path to the old-school bus stop. Every afternoon, he waited by the weathered fence, amber eyes locked onto the bouncing pink backpack as she skipped home. But just as life began to feel steady again, Mrs. Eunice Miller's unease returned. One evening, carrying a plate of warm apple pie to Emily, she froze by the kitchen window. Out on the lonely road under the tall, bare maple, a black SUV sat perfectly still, lights off, windows tinted dark as a shuttered eye. A beast crouched in silence. Max, lying by Emily's feet, sprang up, ears perked, his amber gaze sharpening into a hard, watchful flame. A low growl rumbled from his throat, deep enough for Aaron, rinsing dishes at the sink, to turn and follow Max's stare into the night beyond the fence. The SUV never idled, never flicked its headlights. It just sat there until nearly midnight, then slipped away without a sound. 2 days later, it returned, parking even closer, heavy tires leaving fresh ruts in the damp dirt at the foot of the Carter driveway. Aaron sat alone in the garage that evening, tools untouched. Max lay across the threshold like a living barricade, eyes never blinking from the half-open door. To Aaron, the shepherd had become more than an animal. He was the hinge of an old door creaking open to memories Aaron had fought to bury. Now that door rattled on its hinges, tugged by a shadow they could neither name nor see. On the third night, Mrs. Miller spoke softly to Aaron as he stood smoking on the porch. "Travis Moore. Folks say he's been flashing cash lately. Be careful, Aaron." Aaron pinched the cigarette tight between his fingers, ash spilling onto the cold concrete step. Max, sprawled at his boots, lifted his head, ears slicing the silence toward the dark road. A soft growl bubbled in his chest. His eyes stayed pinned to the night, ready to defend this fragile piece with tooth and bone, if he must. That day, Emily was a bundle of excitement, stuffing clothes into her pink backpack while Max lay sprawled across the bed's edge, chin resting on his paws, eyes following her every move. She was going to sleep over at her best friend's house. Ava Mitchell's place, just 2 streets away. A storm had been forecasted for late that night, but the afternoon sky was still calm, the breeze whispering gently through the maple trees. Aaron stood in the doorway, arms folded, his eyes drifting from his daughter to the watchful shepherd. A chill he couldn't name prickled along his spine, but Emily's grin pushed it away. He swallowed his worry and simply said, "Keep your phone close. If the weather turns, you call me, understand?" Emily nodded enthusiastically, pressed a quick kiss to Max's head, and skipped out the gate with Ava. Max trotted to the porch, watching them disappear behind the tall trees, ears flicking in the wind. Night fell faster than the weatherman had promised. Black clouds rolled over Cedar Hollow like a curtain drawn tight. The wind shrieked across rooftops and the rain hammered down in a relentless sheet. Inside Ava's small house, the girls giggled over popcorn and cartoons until the first crack of thunder shook the window panes like a war drum. Ava's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Let's go see the trail behind the house. It's so cool in the rain. My mom won't even know." Emily hesitated. Her fingers brushed the inhaler in her coat pocket. Rain rattled harder against the glass. But when Ava tugged her hand with that pleading smile, Emily caved in. Wrapped in thin raincoats, they slipped out the back door once the grown-ups fell asleep. The forest trail that was gentle and bright by day turned into a slick, churning mud path at night. Rain stung their cheeks, branches swayed and creaked like reaching claws. They meant to take one quick loop, but 5 minutes blurred into 10, then 20, and the path vanished beneath rushing brown water. Ava's cheap flashlight flickered, sputtered, then died in a hiss of rain. Panic made them run blind toward the faint outline of an abandoned logging cabin near the swollen creek. Inside, wind howled through cracked boards. Rain dripped steadily through the sagging roof. Emily coughed, each breath slicing her chest raw. She fumbled in her pocket. The inhaler was gone. Ava wrapped her own raincoat around Emily's shoulders, voice trembling near tears. "I'm sorry, Emily. I'll get you home. Just wait for the wind to stop, okay?" But the wind didn't stop. It roared like a beast starving for flesh. 2 streets away, back at the Carter house, Max, curled up at the foot of Emily's empty bed, jolted awake. His ears shot up, hackles bristling, eyes locked on the rain-blurred window. 2 streets away, back in Emily's empty room, Max jolted up from his blanket. His ears shot forward, hackles bristling. He paced in tight circles near the bedroom door, claws scraping the floor, a restless growl building in his throat. Down in the kitchen, Aaron paused over a pile of unpaid invoices, frowning at the thump and scratch overhead. Max's bark broke out, sharp and urgent, echoing through the hall. He lunged at the front door, barking again, then spinning back toward the stairs as if demanding Aaron follow. "Max, what's gotten into you?" Aaron muttered. But Max didn't wait. He leapt at the door again, barking so fiercely that Aaron felt something twist in his gut, an old instinct roaring awake. In Max's mind, one word cut through the pounding storm, louder than thunder. "Emily." Max's frantic bark shattered the roar of rain hammering against the windows. Aaron rushed into the living room and froze at the sight. The shepherd stood planted at the front door, tail rigid, paws shredding the old rug as he growled deep and low. "Max, settle down," Aaron barked. But the pounding in his own ears betrayed his rising panic. A chill like an electric shock raced down his spine. He snatched up Emily's spare phone. The screen flickered weakly, signal bars dead, no messages. Max's barking cut through him like a blade, each echo an order. "Move, now." "All right, Max, all right, lead the way," Aaron rasped, voice cracking as if he were convincing himself. He grabbed his coat, flashlight, and stuffed the truck keys into his pocket. But Max had no patience for preparations. He shoved past the door the second the latch clicked, hurling himself into the night's teeth. Outside, rain lashed at Aaron's face like glass shards. But Max never faltered. He tore across the yard, his sturdy legs churning mud beneath the truck's harsh headlights. The old pickup fish-tailed through floodwater, swallowing the dirt road. But Max ran ahead, never out of sight, pausing only to glance back and steer Aaron's path. The road toward Ava's street was gone, replaced by a churning river, littered with torn branches and floating debris. Aaron braked hard at the sight of 2 school backpacks, pink and blue, snagged against a splintered fence post. His pulse roared like thunder in his skull. Before he could even yank the door open, Max had leapt the ditch and vanished into the black mouth of the forest. "Max, wait up!" Aaron yelled, flashlight beam bouncing wildly as he stumbled after that dark, determined shape weaving through trees bent double by the storm. In its jittery circle of light, footprints dotted the slick mud. Tiny tracks, Emily's and Ava's, snaking toward the creek. Rain drowned out every other sound, but Max's sharp, rhythmic barks rose clear and relentless, guiding Aaron like a lighthouse through a sea of chaos. Each bark cut through the storm. She's alive. She's waiting. Max ran like a soldier summoned back to battle, bounding through flooded brush, hurdling broken branches, shaking off water with each powerful stride. Not once did he pause, though thunder cracked like artillery above. Finally, the flashlight's glow found warped planks in a sagging tin roof. The old logging cabin perched by the creek's swollen edge. Through the howling wind came the muffled sobs of two terrified girls. It stabbed Aaron straight in the heart. Max snarled once, threw his weight against the rotting door, and smashed through the barrier as if it were paper. Aaron gritted his teeth, knuckles white around the flashlight, and charged after him, straight toward the only thing in the storm that mattered. Emily. Max's frantic barks shattered the roar of rain hammering against the windows. Aaron rushed into the living room and froze at the sight. The shepherd stood planted at the front door, tail rigid, paws shredding the old rug as he growled deep and low. "Max, settle down," Aaron barked, but the pounding in his own ears betrayed his rising panic. His eyes darted around the entryway and locked on Emily's little pink backpack, still hanging from its hook. His stomach twisted into a hard knot. She forgot her bag? A chill like an electric shock raced down his spine. He snatched up Emily's spare phone. The screen flickered weakly, signal bars dead, no messages. Max's barking cut through him like a blade, each echo an order. "Move. Now." "All right, Max. All right. Lead the way," Aaron rasped, voice cracking as if he were convincing himself. He grabbed his coat, flashlight, and stuffed the truck keys into his pocket. But Max had no patience for preparations. He shoved past the door the second the latch clicked, hurling himself into the night's teeth. Outside, rain lashed at Aaron's face like glass shards. But Max never faltered. He tore across the yard, his sturdy legs churning mud beneath the truck's harsh headlights. The pickup jolted through floodwaters while Max charged ahead. A dark shape, glancing back only to pull Aaron forward, mile after mile of storm. The road toward Ava's street was gone, replaced by a churning river, littered with torn branches and floating debris. Before he could even yank the door open, Max had leapt the ditch and vanished into the black mouth of the forest. "Max, wait up!" Aaron yelled, flashlight beam bouncing wildly as he stumbled after that dark, determined shape weaving through trees bent double by the storm. In its jittery circle of light, footprints dotted the slick mud. Tiny tracks, Emily's and Ava's, snaking toward the creek. Rain drowned out every other sound, but Max's sharp, rhythmic barks rose clear and relentless, guiding Aaron like a lighthouse through a sea of chaos. Each bark cut through the storm. She's alive. She's waiting. Max ran like a soldier summoned back to battle, bounding through flooded brush, hurdling broken branches, shaking off water with each powerful stride. Not once did he pause, though thunder cracked like artillery above. Max hurled himself against the rotting wooden door, slamming into it with such force that the latch snapped open. Inside, Emily was curled up in the corner, her face pale, lips purple. Ava rushed to her, wrapping her arms tightly around the trembling girl, their tears mixing with the rain leaking through the roof. With a sharp bark, Max turned, crashing through the cabin door into the raging stream beyond. He bounded onto a half-submerged rock, turning back to guide Emily and Ava. Each step a battle against the water clawing at their legs. The wind howled, and the rushing water threatened to sweep away the child's tiny feet. Suddenly, Emily lost her footing and fell, nearly dragged away by the current. Max let out a fierce growl and threw himself across the stream, planting his body between Emily and the violent water, his back like a shield blocking the surge. Aaron came running, his heart pounding. He reached out, grabbing the collar of his daughter with one hand and wrapping the other arm around Max's neck, pulling both to safety as the storm roared like thunder around them. On the muddy ground, Emily clung tightly to Max, her tears blending with the rain. "Thank you, Max. You found me." The battered pickup truck waited beneath the hammering rain. Aaron laid Emily gently across the back seat. The engine roared alive, wheels fighting floodwater as they tore toward the only place still lit this late. Hospital inside, the clinic pulsed with harsh fluorescent light, the hiss of oxygen and hurried footsteps. Dr. Clara Rhodes pulled Emily from Aaron's desperate hold and laid her on the clean metal table. "She's in severe respiratory failure. Her asthma's out of control. I need to open her airway now," Clara barked. She nodded at Aaron to hold Emily still and slid her scalpel into the delicate skin at his daughter's throat. Aaron dropped to his knees, clinging to Emily's limp hand, tears mixing with rain on his weathered face. Max pressed his cold nose to Emily's chest, listening for the faintest echo of life. "Hold on, Emily. You listen to Daddy now. Max won't let you go. Not tonight," Aaron whispered, voice cracking like the storm outside. Then a soft rattling moan slipped past Emily's parted lips. Her chest hitched, the emergency tube pulsed faintly. Aaron bent over the table's edge, shoulders shaking with a broken sob. In that bright, sterile room, a fragile life was clawed back from the claws of a raging storm, rescued by love, defiance, and the silent promise of a soldier in a shepherd's body who refused to let her slip away. Emily stirred awake, lashes fluttering under the harsh ceiling light. Aaron's big weathered hand closed firmly around hers before she could slip back into the dark. "Dad, where's Max?" Her voice cracked, raw from the asthma attack that nearly claimed her. Aaron didn't lie. He forced a smile through misted eyes. "He's hurt, honey. He saved you. Now he's fighting, just like you did." Emily struggled upright, clutching his sleeve. "I want to see him. Please, Daddy." Aaron hesitated only a moment, then lifted her gently, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Together, father and daughter pushed into the surgery room just as Clara pulled off her gloves, her face pale as the monitor beside Max's still body. "The heart stopped," Clara whispered, horror dull in her voice. Emily reached out a trembling hand, laying it on Max's scarred head. Her tears slid into his battered fur, soaking it all over again. "Max, don't sleep now. You promised you'd protect me," she whispered, voice cracking on every word. Aaron knelt down, laying his forehead against Max's battered skull. A final goodbye between soldiers who'd lost too many wars. "Luke sent you back, old boy. Don't you dare quit on her now. Not tonight." Silence. The rain tapped the tin roof like a dying clock counting down the end. Then, beep. A fragile spike on the monitor. Clara gasped, snapping the stethoscope to his chest. Another blip. Max's side fluttered with a weak, protesting breath. "Oh my God," Clara breathed, half laughing, half crying. "He's back. Max is back." Emily sobbed against his neck, whispering, "Good boy, Max. Stay with me. Don't ever leave." And this time, though his chest rose slow and shaky, every beat of Max's heart vowed the same promise: to guard his little girl, even when storms returned. 1 week after the storm, Cedar Hollow settled back into its quiet rhythm. Maple leaves clung damply to porches, shingles still bore the ghostly scrape of wind, but inside the Carter living room, warmth had returned, not from the fireplace, but from 3 hearts that refused to surrender. Max lay sprawled on a thick blanket by the window, front leg neatly wrapped in fresh white bandages, fur clean and smelling faintly of antiseptic. Emily sat pressed against his belly, sketchbook balanced on her knees, one hand absently scratching his floppy ear whenever she paused to think. On the page, instead of forests or drifting clouds, she drew Max wearing a bright red scarf she'd made herself. In her drawing, there were no wounds, no mud, just that soft golden gaze, warmer than the early sun. Aaron hovered by the kitchen counter, pouring 2 mugs of cocoa. He handed one to Emily and asked softly, "What are you drawing there, kiddo?" Emily didn't look up, just smiled, eyes fixed on Max dozing beside her. A superhero. My superhero. Aaron rested a calloused hand on her shoulder, then leaned down to scratch Max's back gently. He knew, from the moment Max's heart stuttered back to life, something broken inside him had been stitched up too. Sheriff Daniels dropped by with a brown paper bag of his wife's fresh muffins. He set it on the coffee table and chuckled at the sight of Max. "Word is, our soldiers officially off duty, huh, old friend?" Max didn't answer, of course. He just wagged his tail once, slow but steady, enough to show the battle-hardened guardian was still on watch. That night, as Cedar Hollow settled beneath a soft mist, Emily curled up beside Max, her head tucked against his sturdy ribs. His warmth bled through the blankets, syncing her small heartbeat to his resilient one. Aaron sat by the window, watching his daughter and her soldier through the halo of the lamp's soft glow. He whispered into the hush, "Thank you, Luke, for sending him home. We'll be all right now." Outside, the world hushed itself into peace again. But inside that weathered house, a promise lived and breathed in warm fur and quiet heartbeats. This time, come what may, no storm would find them alone.